Hello and welcome to the Mobalytics patch 11.20 tier list. Once again, I'm Aux Harrison. This patch will be incorporating some of the highlight picks from Mobalytics corners, Nemesis and LS, who recently made a tier list for Worlds. We'll have one pick for the patch for each role and go into detail as to why they think the picks are strong and how you can find value with them in your solo queue games. If you want to hear more about that tier list and the thought process behind it, then check the link in the description to see the full breakdown. So first off, let's kick it off with top lane. In the God tier, we have Tom Kent, Set, and Garen. And the S tier, we have Dr. Mundo, Lilia, Malphite, Mordekaiser, Nasus, Urgot, Wukong, and Yorick. Top lane saw a minor nerf to Singe's E damage. Since he got Grievous Wounds added to his ult, he's been performing pretty well, so definitely a needed nerf. Shen had his base shield toned down, but ultimately it isn't too big of a change, and he still holds his own well in trades. Aurelia got a solid nerf to her passive AD ratio. Definitely does hit her a decent amount, but she's still so powerful in the right hands. First up with the highlight picks is Fiora, and she is one of the picks LS and Nemesis put into Z tier, strongest for the role and with good reason. She's a dominant force when she gets ahead. Currently she's doing so pretty effectively across every elo, and thanks to her mobility, true damage and survivability, she takes a large effort from the enemy team to shut her down. Fiora isn't the best team fighter, so look to apply pressure in the side lane and force someone to answer you or sacrifice their base. When you do inevitably get put in a position where you need to join team fights, then often joining late with a flank or TP is the best way. Teams can deal with Fiora when they have all of their abilities available to shut her down, but later in the fight when champions are low and ults have been used, she can flourish. Darius got a pretty solid buff and a reduction to his W cooldown by 2 seconds at rank 1. Since Darius maxes this last, you'll enjoy this benefit for most of the game. The shorter cooldown means you'll find it more readily available when looking for extended trades, and this is particularly threatening level 1. A common trick for Darius players is to wait in the tri-brush for the enemy top laner if they've leashed for the jungler, and with a 5-second cooldown W, you'll easily be able to run them down and get a free kill. Darius tends to run Ghost simply as it helps so much in team fights and finding kills in lane. The extra movement speed and resets on kills really facilitate your dunking playstyle. Set is a super solid pick at the moment. His laning is solid and he can go toe to toe with most matchups and come out ahead. He excels in skirmishes, being able to bring CC and huge burst on top of survivability in the back of his W. In teamfights, you're in your domain. You have a ton of survivability, and once you have a few items, your W does obscene damage. I've seen people be literally one hit for over 2,000 true damage by his W alone, and your E and R are great tools to set up enemies so these connect. Next, onto the jungle. In the God tier, we have Echo, Trundle, and Amumu, and the S tier, we have Fiddlesticks, Jarvan, Master Yi, Nocturne, Rammus, Vi, Warwick, and Zac. The jungle saw a big change in terms of reduction to smite healing. Krugs and Gromp had their damage lowered to mitigate, so your clear shouldn't be much less healthy, but a big factor in this is shutting down junglers smiting monsters during a fight to heal for a massive amount. Being invaded will put you in a more vulnerable spot as a result, so be sure to watch out. Amumu got a nerf to his Q damage and its mana cost. This is a needed nerf, and honestly it probably isn't enough to massively shake things around as he's so incredibly strong right now. Jarvan lost his spot in God tier thanks to a nerf to his passive. He still works really well into a mobile champs and syncs excellently with Gordrink and Sterak's, but his clear will be a tad slower and his burst lower as a result. Elise and Udyr both got minor buffs, but neither are particularly excellent in the current meta, so this isn't going to have too much of an effect on either champ. Hecarim was an S tier pick for Nemesis and LS, and to follow up, he actually got a solid buff on this patch as well. His W is now a flat cooldown at every rank, and the healing is increased on non-champions. This will make his clear healthier and faster and allow him to get to his one item power spike quicker. We saw Tank Hecarim nerfed out of existence a while back, but he's had quite a few buffs to his AD ratio since then, and his current bruiser build serves him pretty well. Hecarim is especially effective if picked into a mobile carries, as there are very limited options to avoid his engage. Kayn is really popular at the moment. Currently his blue form is massively outperforming his red form, but you build bruiser items to get a mix of high damage and mobility and solid survivability. It goes without saying that Kayn's early game is a bit more underwhelming before he has his form. That being said, you can still take really creative gank paths being able to move through terrain. Once your form is unlocked and you have your Gordrinker, you can really look to take over games and dominate. Poppy is a bit more of a niche jungler, but she's especially effective and played into highly mobile champions as her W really shuts them down. Lee Sin is a great example, as you will massively struggle to get onto your carries if you sit on top of them. Personally, I find she's the best counter to Kayn. The matchup is so heavily favoured towards her because if you E him when he's within a wall, then he'll get stunned against it. You can follow up with your ultimate and use your W to stop him from using his Q, and then often your E is available again if this is later in the game. It's a really suffocating matchup for him, and Poppy is a solid pick if you're struggling with champions to take into Kayn. Onto the mid laners. In the God tier, we have Yasuo, Akshan, and Aurelia, and the S tier, we have Ahri, Anivia, Annie, Fizz, Graves, Kayle, Lux, Malzahar, and Zed. We didn't actually get any mid lane changes on this patch, so let's jump straight into the highlight picks. First up is Graves, and this is another Z tier pick which is best in the role from Nemesis and LS. Graves gets a ton of value from playing in the lane. He gets extra levels in farm and is a pick who scales excellently with both. Graves does well in skirmishes with a mix of burst, solid sustained damage, and the incredibly broken effect of his smokescreen, which can basically remove a target from a fight, even if just for a short time. Graves when ahead becomes a monster to deal with, able to basically one-shot targets on the back of his autos thanks to a potent mix of lethality and crit. After Fizz's revert and the buff to his E cooldown, he's in a really good spot at low elo. With how slippery he already was and how reliant he is on his E for mobility and damage, he's in prime position to dominate games. When ahead, it's very difficult to punish Fizz, and once he hits the point where he's bursty enough to kill a target without his ult, then he's almost impossible to peel. Fizz causes a lot of issues for control mages in the mid lane. He was always traditionally a counter to picks like Syndra, as he can jump over a stun and get up close and personal. Vex has flown into a decent spot on the list. She did get a hotfix nerf to tone her down a bit, but she's still a really potent pick. She plays somewhat similarly to Lissandra in the sense she looks to hard engage on her targets and blow them up, but the reset aspect of her ult, she's very effective at chaining together kills. Essentially with your passive stack, look to connect your R, fly in and AoE fear with W, and follow up to burst the target. With Horizon Focus you have more than enough damage, and on the back of that you can then R again and look to chain kills together. She does really well into champions like Yasuo or Aurelia, who dash frequently as she gets to proc her passive even more often as a result. Onto AD carries, in the God tier we have Misfortune, Ziggs and Vayne, and the S tier we have Ashe, Draven, Jhin, Sivir and Swain. Again with AD carry we didn't get any changes, so let's move straight onto the highlight picks. Nemesis and LS gave Ziggs S tier in their Worlds tier list, and he's a really powerful option in the bot lane, particularly when your team is needing AP. Ziggs is a little bit underwhelming until you're able to reset and get Lost Chapter, but after that point you can shred waves to your heart's content. Priority can lead you to hitting towers, and Ziggs is without doubt the best tower take in the game, often able to get a ton of tower plates when ahead. Ziggs scales really effectively and is able to dish out huge amounts of AoE damage, and he's best paired with some C to keep enemies in place for his ultimate, and Amumu is a great example as you'll also benefit from his passive boosting your damage. Even if behind, Ziggs is a great pick to stall out games with his wave clear, and if enemies try to take Baron and get trapped in the pit, your ult and poke can easily force them off. Jhin is a really potent pick on low elo. His ability to quickly shove out waves with his Q and offer strong all-in threat between his 4th shot and W make him a solid pick in a range of situations. He's also one of the few AD carries who still use fleet footwork. The extra sustain combined with movement speed sync really well with the movement speed he's granted on a crit. With fleet footwork recently getting buffed, he's in an even better position. He's able to out-trade and out-sustain a lot of lanes and scale up into a really powerful spot. His ultimate as well does a good amount of damage, and if your team's engaging, you can use it to follow up and take out low HP targets. On to supports, in the God tier we have Blitzcrank, Nami and Soraka, and the S tier we have Amumu, Brand, Leona, Morgana, Sona, Xerath, Zillion and Zyra. With support we would have seen Amumu up to God tier, but with the nerf he's only moved up to S. Definitely still very powerful, but a bit less damage in his all-in, and now forced to be more mana conscious. Imperial Mandate was buffed by a decent amount, which is needed as it's fairly underutilized, but the issue is that the item is simply limited to champions that can proc it very well. There's a couple of examples in the highlight picks, and they will very much appreciate the buff. First up is Yuumi, and she got B tier in the support role from Nemesis and LS, which does sound low, but there was only one champion above B tier for the entire role, which was Amumu. Yuumi is really prevalent at the moment in solo queue. In particular, she pairs well with Lucian as she can help utilize as a powered autos, but honestly she does well with a range of AD carries. The big factor that gives Yuumi value is her scaling when paired with bruisers who can run havoc with their extra AD and the healing to keep them going. It's really difficult to deal with if you're on the enemy team, and honestly Yuumi essentially puts the game on a timer, either make things happen early and close the game out or deal with a big problem later on. Nami's in a great spot. When paired with Lucian, they make one of the strongest lanes in the game. The combined burst between her E and his empowered autos is really hard to deal with, and often you can instantly blow up an enemy target. That being said, she still functions well with a range of AD carries. You have sustain to mitigate poke, your E helps with trading, and your ult and Q provides great CC to peel. That being said, you are squishy, so be cautious about being engaged on by more aggressive lanes. But if you avoid that, you'll be able to provide a lot of power to your AD carry. Mandate synergizes better with Nami than any other support as it adds on to all of your abilities except your W. With it being buffed in this patch, you'll be contributing even more damage once it's completed to help your AD carry shred. With Mandate being buffed again, I'm back to recommending Mandate Karma as a solid poke pick in the bot lane. At every elo, Mandate had a higher win rate on Karma compared to other mythics, often by 1 to 2 percentage points. With a buff coming in, she's set to be in a powerful spot. Karma's laning is really solid with her ability to both harass and shove in unison. Once you get Mandate, it allows you to continue offering competitive damage throughout the game. Since the changes to allow your ult to refund much faster earlier in the game, you can find yourself landing significant and frequent poke on enemy champions. Karma's changes made her weaker as an enchanter, and at the moment she's thriving more as a poke mage in the support role. You still will have a solid helping of AP to make your shield bigger, and the flexibility of your ult allows you to offer AoE shielding in critical moments, but the optimal play pattern is using your mantra Q to decimate the enemy team. And that's it for this patch. Hopefully this has been helpful in getting you up to speed on the meta. If you're interested in seeing the full low elo and high elo list in one place, including C&D tiers, then head on over to mobalytics.gg where you can get even more info including counters, builds, tips, combos and more. See you next time, and thanks for watching.